up, guys? Welcome to the podcast. My name is Katie Kleber, and I have an interview I'm very excited to share with you. So I interviewed Morgan Melancon, the Director of Nursing Education and Professional Development at St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, y'all. I like to say y'all in general, and it was nice to be talking to two ladies who also say y'all because they're in Tennessee, and that's what you do there. All right. The other person I interviewed was Annabeth Davis. She's the manager of the transition to practice within the Department of Nursing Education. So her and Morgan work together. Morgan's the director, while Annabeth works specifically with transition to practice. And what that means, people, is the basically residency, like transitioning people from nursing school to bedside practice at this hospital specifically. So in this interview, we actually ended up starting off talking all about nurse residency programs. And then we talked about oncology specific stuff. And it just split so perfectly down the middle that I decided to make it into a two-parter. So in this first part, we're going to talk all about residency programs. And I think it's very helpful for those of you in nursing school, getting ready to graduate, or maybe those of you who have been out of practice for a long time, getting ready to go back, to understand the inner workings of how residency programs work. You'll hear in this episode, they had revamped their program. And I think it's really interesting to hear the different things that they're like, ooh, that's not working, let's fix that. And just their perspective of that transition to practice. So this episode, we're going to be chatting residency programs. It's very, very interesting, just operationally and practically. Where do you get hired? Do you get hired onto a specific unit or into a pool? And how do you learn about the different units? All those things. So that will be this episode. And then the next episode, we'll get into some nitty-gritty oncology stuff. All right, guys, let's dig in. Well, thank you both so much for joining me on the FreshRN podcast. It's great to have you both here.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
Yes, very excited.
Yeah, I'm a nurse residency fan. I did one years ago. I made my own one for people who don't have access to that. And I know residency is like your bread and butter for
yes.
I read that you both revitalized a residency program. And before I ask you oncology questions, I was like, well, wait, tell me more about that. Like, What was it like and what did you do and what made the difference and all that?
Yeah, no, I mean, the first year of nursing is terribly hard to acclimate to. And, St. Jude is really lucky. We have really low turnover compared to other hospitals across the country, but we still were losing residents. Mm-hmm. And we were like, how can we help them? How can we make this better? And so the great thing about working at St. Jude is all about innovation. And so you have an idea, and most of the times they're like, yeah, go try it. And so they really gave us the freedom to develop our own nurse residency program.
That's
and it's been really awesome. I think we changed almost everything about it.
What was it was it because I've seen various structures, like we meet once a week and here's a little lecture, and I've spoken with nurses all across the country where I hear some that are like, it was so helpful, and then some that are like, this was just something else I had to do and it didn't really help me, so I'm curious what were the things that you were like, we need to change this, and then what did it change?
So originally it was didactic 8-hour days. So that was what we wanted to make dynamic and more user-friendly for the nurse, and then actually have applicable things they could bring back to their practice. So we actually mimicked, they have a 12-hour day, just like they would on the floor. And we cover everything from didactic presentation. We have simulation. We do skills boot camps. We do non-traditional simulations. And then we usually end the day with some type of enculturation activity, whether that's into the St. Jude community or the Memphis community. We have so many nurse residents who actually move here from out of state. So we spend a lot of time and invest a lot in those out of state residents to support them in their transition, not only to St. Jude, but also to Memphis. So we do really cool activities across the community to help get them a little bit more involved. And that really ends the day kind of on a high note. And it's super awesome.
Well, I bet that would increase people like wanting to go. I didn't even like hear of people like doing that before, but yeah, that makes sense with such a large center and people. I would imagine a lot of people move there. That's incredible. Like, and two, so how often are you? Is this like once a month, once a week?
They come once a month. Yep. Okay. And then we have 2 cohorts every year. We follow the largest graduation cycle. So we do a May cohort and then a December cohort.
Yep.
But yeah, no, our issue was that our residents were not engaged because they were bored 8 hours a day. And then we, the ones that left St. Jude were the ones that weren't from Memphis. And so we knew we had to make it fun and help them get acclimated to the city because we really want them to be happy at work and at home.
Yeah.
And so, so that was one of the biggest things we focused on, enculturation and socialization. So now all our residents on board on the very same day. So they have 25 best friends from day one.
Yeah.
Which is super helpful. We do an NCLEX study week because we know that studying for NCLEX is, the top of their list.
Yeah.
And we want to help take some of that burden off. So we do a whole week of NCLEX study activities. We do gamification, all kinds of things to really support them.
So wait, pause. They're hired before licensure.
Correct.
And start working before. And then, so are they like how does that like work legally? Because they don't have that license yet.
So they're hired into what we call a new graduate nurse position. So it's not quite exactly our RN position. And so they're able to function on the units with the assistant of like a preceptor or a nurse, like they were in nursing school.
Okay.
So they can function under that new graduate role. And what we actually do is they're not hired into a specific unit. So
that
something really...
Yeah, something the other biggest thing that we changed about our program.
Something super unique and awesome about our residency program is that actually they essentially go through a clinical rotation period where they spend time in every single unit. So all of our inpatient units, so that includes our solid tumor neuro-oncology, leukemia, hematology, ICU, bone marrow transplant, and our operating room, and then also our outpatient primary clinics and infusion center. So they spend time in all of those areas. It lasts anywhere from about 4 to 6 weeks. And then they get to submit their preferences on where they like to work. And then the units actually share their feedback on who they thought was a really great fit with them and their team. And we follow the same evidence-based algorithm that med schools use to match their students with residencies. And we follow that and match our nurse residents to their home unit. And the end of that ends in a huge match day celebration. It's confetti and food and fun, and they get to announce where they've matched, and they go to their home unit, and it's a huge day of celebration, and it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Wow.
It definitely.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. They really like the clinical rotation format because they kind of get to test out the unit before they commit to working there. Most times you apply and you end up working on a unit that you've never met anybody beyond the interviewing manager. And so this lets them meet the people, see the patient population, figure out, do they like day shift or night shift or 8-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts? And really lets them have a lot of autonomy over where they end up working to, which has in turn shown us that we have greater retention.
Oh, yeah. Because it's like I've seen somewhere you get hired into a pool and then you do that little bit of like floating kind of thing, but you just get put somewhere and it might not be a place you like. And it's like, when can I transfer? And it's not like the best. You feel like you go from like nursing school where you really don't have a whole lot of control and you're just trying to follow rules, and then just a big life transition out of school into this first job, and it's a place you don't like, a unit you don't even like want to be on, or maybe you spent time on it and there's some mean people on it that you don't want to be around. Like it can be make or break. And I mean, nurses like, well, I'm done, I'm leaving, I've definitely had people reach out to me with like that kind of like, I ended up getting on a unit that I can't stand. So it's wonderful that they have a say in that. I'm sure that helps retention like significantly.
It really does.
We've had 100% retention so far since we started that format. And
whoa,
we haven't, I know, right? It's like
how long
unheard
has it
been? Like 2 years. Yeah.
So that's 4 cycles.
So we're starting our third cycle.
For the new format.
Yeah. But I mean, we've had 100% retention to St. Jude, but we also, now that we're thinking about it, I haven't even thought about this. We probably should track this information. We haven't had anybody change units either.
Ooh, that would be something good to track.
Yeah. Because, ultimately for retention, it's just, are they at St. Jude or not?
Yeah.
But yeah, they actually have all stayed in their unit. Home unit.
Is there a policy like where how long they have, like just in general, like you're hired onto this specific unit and let's say you want to go to another one. Is there like a hospital-wide policy that's like, you can't 18 months or something like that?
Yes. So technically the hospital policy is 1 year.
Okay.
If you want to transfer before then you can, but you have to have permission from your initial hiring manager. However, we're pretty lenient on allowing people to go where they want to go because we ultimately want you to be happy. And St. Jude is really, really good about professional development, even if it means leaving a certain area. And so as long as you're staying at St. Jude, most people have absolutely no problem letting people go early.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's helpful to know because you also like don't want to keep someone who really doesn't want to be there. But I've also heard horror stories of like blocking transfers and, and stuck there for a long time. And then also in smaller markets where if you decide to leave or that hospital and there's literally nowhere else to work because they won't let you get hired somewhere else.
Yeah.
So you can get really like pigeonholed and it's not.
You can.
Cool.
I think interesting too with like, current clinical climate, with COVID and nursing schools kind of really having to change what their clinical rotations look like. Most of these nurses coming in have had any clinical in any area other than maybe just a basic med surg floor. So most of these nurses, especially in our last cohort, said, we don't really know where we want to work because we haven't had the opportunity to see. So this gives them the opportunity to see all of the areas before they have to make a final decision. Because a lot of times what you think you may like, you get there and you may not really like the people or the patient population. Yep. And now you've just already signed a contract and here you go. So this gives them a little bit more of a cushion and a glimpse at like all of our areas that we offer. And then they can decide after that point which one is the best fit for them.
Yeah, because if you jump into like OR nursing and hate it, and then you want to go do like literally anything else because it's so different, like you're a brand new grad, like feel completely new all of a sudden.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. No. Yeah. We've even had this last cohort. We had somebody that the OR was their first pick, and she didn't think it would be like that coming in, but she just fell in love with the people, and and so that was definitely a kind of a surprise for us.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I was going to want to be like a NICU nurse. And then through my like experience, I decided I really love geriatrics and neuro. And I would have never put
it's interesting looking back, when I was a young nurse, I was a NICU nurse in my first job. I lasted a year and I was kind of the same thing. I was like, oh, NICU all the way. I'm going to be critical care babies. This is my niche. I literally hated every minute of my job.
Did you? Like, see, I never worked it.
I cried every day. And, it was one of those things that it was not for me. And I'm actually OR nurse. That's kind of became my niche. So like I got into a totally different field and fell in love with it. So I think giving them this opportunity to decide, hey, this actually is not what I thought it was going to be. Let me reframe my thinking. They have about 6 weeks to do that. And it's really nice because like Morgan said, a lot of them, when we track them, because we do check in with them every week during these rotations and make sure, that they're getting acclimated and how things are going. Some of them start off saying, oh, I love this unit, this unit, this unit. Well, by the end of the 6 weeks, that probably has totally changed because they've had so many different experiences. So it's really neat to watch their thought process of getting those opportunities on different units and deciding which one they like better.
And you know what I've run into with like supporting new graduates kind of from afar is such pressure that I've noticed that they put on themselves to get that know the right specialty that they are going to be their dream job right out of school and then get that dream job. And then if they don't get it, it's this big, like watershed life moment.
Yes.
Like there's like despondent that and I'm like, that I think that it is, you want to have a job you really like, but it's like, oh, I really wanted to work ICU and I didn't get ICU and now I don't even know what to do with myself. Have you run into that as well? Like, or maybe they don't show all those cards necessarily to you guys, but.
So the very first time we did this format, we saw some of that. And people, were like, oh, I got my third pick unit instead of my first pick unit and thinking it was a travesty. And oh my gosh, I'm going to hate it. And then now, asking them, I asked one of them the other day, would you change anything? They're like, no, this is my home. I'm going to stay forever. And so I think that you're right. At the moment, they're like, oh my gosh, this is going to ruin my whole life. And then it ends up being great. We have gotten better since that first one. And so now we really prep them well when they come in and have really good expectations set for what it's going to be like. I think for me, the thing that has been most interesting is that what I see is that it's not normally the unit that they change their mind on, really. It's more the people that make them change their mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, I found this one person in this unit and I love them. And so they end up changing from what they thought would be their specialty because of the people and not the work.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been really awesome to see.
Yeah, I completely get that. Nursing is such a team sport that like, even if you love that patient population, if you're with a team that doesn't help one another or you just don't vibe well and it's not a good fit, that is like a deal breaker. And then you find a unit where there is like you fit in, you gel in real good, and you could take a patient population that's not ideal for you and still flourish and still thrive and really enjoy it.
100%.
It is super interesting. I think that realistic expectation piece for new grads is so important because we just think we have to get that perfect job. It's almost like they think, and I say that I thought this too, like I graduate, it was such a hard journey. This is the end of the journey. When really it's like, if this was a marathon, like getting through nursing school is like finishing the registration table.
Yes,
right?
Yes. That's very true.
Yeah, I was going to say the first mile, but it's probably registration was worth it.
No, we don't need a PR. We don't need to we need to and you think about other professions too. Like, does a teacher get their first dream job of teaching? Is it realistic to expect that with your first job? It's probably not. But we set ourselves up. So I don't know. I did that. I know a lot of people have. So it's nice to know you can get like this realistic experience of physically being on those units. And then also the units get to know them too. Yes. So I think that's probably a really wise way for everyone involved to go about that.
And it just gets the staff more involved too. It boosts the morale of the staff that are existing as well as the new graduates coming in. So it's a benefit for, both the staff that are already there and the new residents coming in. It makes it so much more cohesive. They're very involved from the beginning, from their first day when they get here through all of the rotations and then to match day. So most of them have already formed relationships with these new graduate nurses. So it really brings everyone together and has been really nice for our institution and our nursing because we've really come together as one, I feel like, with these new graduates and supporting them because they're getting the opportunity to be involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a big transition that you're thrown into this completely new environment to have structured support is definitely make or break. Cause you can feel very lonely and very especially if you don't start with a group of people. I remember starting as a new grad feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know at all what I thought I would know when I got here to this point. And I hope nobody figures out how little I actually know. And I very vividly remember the first time in residency, I overheard a couple people talking just about what I think it was something about glucometers or something. It was like, oh, wow, they don't know anything either. And it was just this moment, anything. We knew stuff, but we didn't what we thought we would know at that point. We didn't. And it was just so humanizing to hear, okay, we're all scared in this together. So to start off day one with a group of people to break that down is, I think,
it is
very important.
And our sessions every month, we definitely consider that our safe space. So, when they come together, everything, we kind of say it's like Vegas, when they come into residency, we can talk openly, we can have conversations, we can talk about situations. And that way it gives all of the residents an opportunity to see, oh yeah, my coworker or my friend who works on the unit below me, ran into the same situation that I did last week. And so we've seen a lot of really great, fruitful conversation from that because allowing them to have that safe space all together has been really helpful.
Oh yeah, you learn so much from all the stories and you're like, oh, okay, so she did this and then this happened. So it's helpful for me to know because you can read the textbook, you can read, but there's so much gray area with all these little situations that there's no way to like adequately like prepare people. They have to like walk through it. Mm-hmm. So hearing from one another and enabling one another to learn from those mistakes or missteps, I think really maximizes them. So everybody else can like learn too. So not everybody has to make those mistakes, which is why I do the stuff I do online. Like, y'all don't do what I did in X, Y, and Z. Please learn from me. So you can look way smarter than I did.
Yeah, no, that's always my favorite thing. I'm like, well, let me tell you this time
that I screwed up and looked ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to that episode. We're going to pick up next week where we start to talk all about nitty-gritty specific oncology stuff. You know, what kind of procedures and things are oncology nurses doing at St. Jude specifically, but also just in general? What kind of certifications and things that are necessary to be able to administer things like chemotherapy, end of life stuff. Very interesting conversation. And there's oncology and then there's also pediatric oncology. So I think these ladies have such a great perspective to provide insight into what it's like doing pediatric oncology at a very unique hospital setup in a very renowned, research center. So that episode will be available next week. Make sure you stay up to date on all things FreshRN. If you head to FreshRN.com, you can sign up for my email list. And just thank you guys so much for listening and stay fresh.